Welcome to interRel's presentation of What's New in EPM Planning Cloud. interRel is an industry-leading full-service Oracle EPM partner. We specialize in EPM and BI. We would love to help you if you need assistance with consulting, training, assessments, and/or support. This is a brief overview of our webcast schedule for September. Be sure to find out the latest news for SBASE, OAC, and FCC. And with all that out of the way, let's have a look at EPM planning updates from 2020. While we don't have time to cover them all, we hope to cover those that could be important to your EPM planning applications. Please submit any questions through the Q&A button. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation. Have you ever wished someone could just do your forecast or budget for you, and all you need to do is review it for a sanity check? Well, now you can. With the addition of Auto Predict, you have this capability out of the box. This tool allows administrators to set up intelligent performance management predictions for future periods based on historical performance. Auto Predict uses the same prediction methods as predictive planning. However, it can run thousands of predictions to populate a forecast or plan instead of only one manual prediction at a time, like predictive planning. And you can automate it to run on a schedule. What can I do with Auto Predict? Well, you could use it to populate your forecast or plan and then make adjustments. You could use the predictions as a comparison against user forecasts and ask users to explain if their numbers are significantly different than the predictions. And you might want to run a scheduled update each month after actuals close, and you could update your predictions and see if you're on track. With Auto Predict, you can use one cube as the source and write the predictions to another cube. So think about being able to read several years of history from an ASO reporting cube and write the predictions to a BSO planning cube. So on your selection, your prediction selection as you're defining it, if you select a name cube from select cube options, in this example, we've got FX rates, test RPRT, test plan. If we select one of those cubes, both our source and where our predictions are written will be within the same cube. If we want to use different cubes, we select cube to cube, and then we'll have the opportunity to select a source cube and a prediction cube. By default, Auto Predict will calculate a best case and a worst case in order to have a range for its predictions. You'll have the option to include those cases in your prediction creation. Now, if you use those, you'll need to set 3 different POVs for the predictions to be written into. Once you have your prediction definitions created, you can run them at any time from the Auto Predict page. You simply select the actions menu for the prediction and then select run. You can also schedule auto predictions to run as a job. To do this, you go to the job page, you select Auto Predict as the job type, you select either run now or the date and time you wish to schedule it for, and then you select the Auto Predict definition that you want to run. Auto Predict will read and analyze your historical data and write predicted values into the designated scenarios. Because this data is written into your cube, you can use it just like any other data stored in the cube in forms, dashboards, ad hoc analysis, etc. There are some caveats to using Auto Predict. It runs on hybrid SBASE, and you should have at least twice the amount of historical data as the number of prediction periods that you want. If you have less than 6 periods of historical data, it will predict in a straight line. And related to the Auto Predict capabilities are some enhancements to predictive planning. When you're working with predictive planning, you can now select members from all dimensions when defining the POV for the historical data source. Previously, you could only select the scenario and version. If you already have POVs created with a scenario version, those will still be in the POV for the relevant cube. Now you can go in, you select the prediction cube, you can select a source cube, and you can select the POV from that source cube that you want to use. You can select the prediction cube and the source cube to be the same. So this is useful for predictions and financials. Well, let's say that your POV of the source is set to pull historical actuals data from a plan element dimension, let's say called load. And let's also say the form where you've got predictive planning set up has calculated in the POV as the plan element dimension member in the POV. If we paste the predictive data into the form, it'll save into that calculated member. So this enhancement also ensures you can do the same predictions in predictive planning and in auto predict. An exciting new feature will be released this month, and it is called Dashboards 2.0. Dashboards 2.0 provides a new look and feel, new chart types, along with a host of other features. It's based on the Oracle Jet Engine stack. So version 1.0 was based on the ADF stack. Version 2.0 will allow higher interactivity, consistency in design, and instant preview. It also includes a new designer interface. The designer will support all the Dashboard 1.0 charts. It supports background colors and additional features. New visualizations such as waterfall, combination with dual Y, ring gauge, table spark chart, polar bar, and geomaps are just a few of the visualizations available. Just think about being able to have a map and see, based on the size of the circle, the amount of revenue or expenses, etc., for different locations around on the map. Oracle continues to improve the user experience with Flex Forms for SmartView. How often do your users, they just need to work with a few rows of a form? A new feature available in SmartView is Flex Forms. It gives your users the ability to edit the dimension on the rows of the form, but they can't change the columns. They no longer need to switch to ad hoc to make a lot of changes. If they just need to work on the rows, they can work on the rows, and they can still select members from the POV. To turn this feature on, you do this in the form editor under the SmartView options. All you have to do is check the box for Enable Flex Form. When you look in the library of forms in SmartView, forms enabled as Flex Forms will have a different icon. And when you click on a Flex Form, open Flex Form, you'll see an additional option to open that form as a Flex Form. Once the Flex Form is open, the user can perform normal Excel functions on the rows like sort, remove, add, and reorder. So we would select the rows that we want to remove. We can use Excel functionality, just right-click and select delete, and we can delete those rows out, or we could delete those rows ourselves. We can manipulate the rows as we see fit. We can add accounts. We can remove accounts. Once we have the rows the way we want to work with them, we can simply input or review the data as whatever it is we're looking to do. If we decide that we made a mistake, we want all the original rows back in, we just reopen the form. The changes that are made in a Flex Form do not affect the form definition, and they only last while you're working with that form as you've altered it. If you want the original form back, you just refresh the form or reopen the form. You've got it all, the form definition back in place. Let's face it, planning cubes are not equal to S-based cubes. That's because planning imposes rules and requirements that many times we don't want or we don't need. For a long time, we've wanted to be able to just build a cube in planning or in the planning environment. So this kind of freedom is what's been missing for a long time in planning applications. We don't have to have a certain set of dimensions. If we want to combine years and periods, we can. No scenarios and version dimensions. We haven't had this in planning. Now we will do. Now that we can use freeform planning to get closer to that now we can use freeform planning to get closer to that S-based experience we want. And by the way, we can also add a bunch of planning features on top of that S-based experience to create to create more robust applications than we ever could with just S-based. So how do we get these cubes into freeform? Well, we can import an existing S-based outline from on-prem 11.1.2.400 that contains an ASO or a BSO outline, or we can import an LCM snapshot of an existing 11.1.2.400 single cube S-based application, or we can use the application wizard to create a shell application and build the cube. In our new instance, the first thing we need to do is create a planning application. So we click on Select under Planning. And then we need to click Start under Create a New Application. And once we have our basic application created, we'll choose a creation method. We use the import, as we're going through the creation, we choose a method. So we use the wizard to either import an OTL or an LCM file, or we can create it from scratch, or we can import from a local file from the inbox. These post-creation steps are pretty much the same steps you would use for creating any application. Once your application is created, you want to check your outline and dimensions to make sure they're the way you expect them to be. You want to tune and test your cubes. Since we don't have load rules, you would need to convert those to data management integrations. Your S-based filters, you'll want to convert to planning security, migrate your FR reports, update your SmartView connections for the new planning URL connection, and we'll cover how to do that in a SmartView update. And then you'll want to set up automation to download nightly snapshots. So you have an S-based cube set up the way you want it, and you get the benefits of EPM like dashboards, data forms, navigation flows, approvals, and common administration. Strategic modeling has received several updates this year. As more businesses recognize the need for rapid and numerous what-if scenarios, they're turning to scenario modeling for these answers. With scenario modeling, they're able to quickly model potential scenarios and develop mitigation plans in case that scenario occurs. Within strategic modeling, you're now able to create it's now available when you create a custom EPM planning application. So what you do in the configure details screen, you check the box for strategic modeling. And as you go through the additional steps to create the application, strategic modeling will appear when the application has been created. Within strategic modeling, an update is the ability to create custom dimensions. You can assign members of these dimensions to specific accounts. To do this, you'll open and check out the model, and then from the Actions menu, you select Create Custom Dimensions. If you don't have any custom dimensions, you'll see a screen that tells you that and gives you the opportunity to either create custom dimensions or upload dimensions from a file. Once you've created your custom dimensions, you can assign them to accounts. Let's say we want to assign custom dimension members to the product sales account. So with the account selected, we would select Assign Custom Dimensions from the Actions menu and assign members to the account. Once we assign those custom dimension members, new sub-accounts will appear with the custom dimension member associated with them. Another feature added to strategic modeling this year is the ability to set when a data map runs when you perform a consolidation. So many times you'll want to push data from your strategic models into planning and reporting cubes. Data maps is the way to do this. You may set the data map to run before, after, or on the final step of the consolidation. After you select the data map, You have the option to check Run on Consolidate. So if you check this option, every time the consolidation is run, the data map will push the consolidated data to planning or S-base, or to your planning cubes. In your consolidation view, you will see when a data map is set to run, so it'll come up with a list of before, after, and final. In the final column, if you see models that are set to use default, you need to change those to none. The way that you'll do that is, so when the consolidation is first created, some models are by default, they're set to use the default data map. You need to change this to none unless there's some specific data map that should run for them. And the way you do this is you simply click on where it says use default. From use default, within that associated map for the model, you can unselect use default data map. Save that, and when you get back to the consolidation definition there, you'll see that there are no data maps associated with that model. EPM now provides out-of-the-box support for 13 periods. Why 13 periods, and why would I want to use it? So here we can see 3-month calendar, 3 months of a calendar year. So for a business with a biweekly pay cycle, there's a varying number of pay periods per month, and there's a varying number of days per month. If the typical year of 52 weeks is divided up into 13 periods, you'll get the same number of pay cycles and the same number of days per period. This makes comparisons more meaningful for certain types of businesses like retail, hospitality, restaurants, etc. You can use period 13 with all 4 planning modules and with custom applications. To set up period 13 support, first, you want to review how you currently work with your 13 periods. So how do you break out your quarters? Which ones are going to get 3 periods and which ones will get 4? If there are extra days or week, which period should those go into? Once you know how you want to set up your 13 periods, in your configuration details for the application, you'll set your options. And when you go through your module configuration, it remains the same as before. The workforce module has received enhancements to the load and calc process. This feature originally was introduced in the February 2019 update. However, it's important, so we mention it again here. You should be using incremental load and calc of your workforce data. New load and calc processes significantly improve performance through the data management incremental load adapter. This helps you, again, cut down on the amount of load time and effort for loading your workforce data. Other workforce module enhancements include mass update forms to allow modifying larger sets of data. You have a new start date required for employee properties versus previously it was just a start month. The year range also now allows for separate time horizons across the modules, so you don't have to have the same forecast time horizon for financials as you do for workforce. Let's talk about some updates for SmartView. This year, we got a new version of SmartView 2100. So Oracle understands that many users work almost exclusively in Excel and SmartView. They continue to add functionality to the add-in. In version 2100, they've added a URL mapping tool, which we talked about earlier. We said how you could change your URL mapping between an on-prem S-base cube and a freeform cube in the cloud. This tool will help you do that. You access this through private connections. You select the server dropdown and then manage your URL mappings to quickly map from one SmartView sheet, one URL in the sheet to the new URL. If your users are primarily doing their work in Excel, why make them go to the web to submit their planning approvals? So this version also includes the ability to manage planning approvals from within SmartView. Of course, the approvals already have to be set up by the service administrator in planning, But that being said, they can do all their approval, necessary approval activities through SmartView. If you've ever copied a sheet out of a SmartView a spreadsheet, you know it can be time consuming to have to recreate the POV, the alias tables, all that stuff in a new workbook. With import metadata, you can simply copy the metadata from the source document. So let's say you use the copy spreadsheet functionality, and you use that in Excel to copy a spreadsheet from one workbook to the next. In the target workbook, you can import the SmartView metadata over there so you don't have to recreate all of that. For a lot of users working in Excel, it's sometimes easier to work with the data if all the members are on the rows. So instead of having to look back up and see, okay, what particular dimension member am I working with here because all these rows are blank, now you can set the form so that it will duplicate the members on the rows. So think about copying and pasting the data into or out of a form. This makes that much easier. The option, you set this option in SmartView options in the form editor. The EPM data integration agent allows you to connect to on-premise data sources and send data to the EPM cloud. So if you previously have been using FDMEE to connect to the cloud, or you've had to import big files, now you can use this EPM data integration agent and you can connect your on-prem data sources to the cloud. You can use SQL or scripting to access your data sources. In synchronous mode, this requires users or customers to allow inbound connections from data management to kick off the integration. If asynchronous, pushes data to the cloud into a queue for processing. To use the agent, you download and install and configure the agent in your environment. You'll create a template with a header row that contains the fields returned by a query or script. Then in data management, you use the template as a source definition to create a source for the agent. Once you have the source set up, you can create the rest of the integration. Then you can start the agent and you can run the integration. Oracle continues to add and update EPM Automate commands. It's updating just about every month. It's important to stay up to date on these commands to ensure any changes don't have an adverse impact on your automation. For example, earlier this year, a requirement came out, used to be you have the requirement to have the domain name at the end of the login command. So the requirement to have that parameter out there was removed. And it was going to be necessary for all automation scripts to be updated to remove that login parameter. However, enough people saw the coming update, they were able to speak with Oracle, and Oracle changed EPM Automate to simply ignore that domain name parameter at the end of the login. There would have been, people would have had to go back and update hundreds or thousands of automation scripts in order to avoid issues. So Oracle making that change shows that they are willing to listen and they are making changes for the better. Some new commands here. You may now update security groups using files to add or remove users from the groups. You can also run a rule set, and running a rule set will potentially cut down on the amount of automation lines that you need to write to run a set of rules. So this is kind of big because let's say you have 5 business rules you need to run. You can put those in a rule set. Now you only need 1 line of code and automation to call run rule set. Instead, previously you would have needed 5 lines with run business rule. So also now if you need to change the rules that are run or the sequence, you can go in to edit the rule set and you don't have to go alter the EPM automation script. Some commands have been enhanced. With the enhanced recreate command, you can insert parameters to upgrade or downgrade your S-based version in legacy FCC or ePBCS or PBCS+1. The reset service command now allows running of the auto-tune S-based functionality that will tune your S-based caches based on your application performance. So these two commands don't require special permissions to run. However, it's up to administrators to make sure that your license covers this additional functionality before you use these parameters. Oracle created a guide to contain information common to all the EPM applications. It's the Oracle EPM Cloud Operations Guide. This is a new guide that enables them to gather all this common information so that it's not duplicated in multiple guides. This guide receives frequent updates. It has links to tutorials, videos, and solutions to common reported problems. It also contains information on creating an SR should you need to do so. Something that you might want to create a link to so that you can, if you have an issue, or if you need to look something up, you have a quick resource available to look that up. For companies that plan and forecast at the weekly level, every 5 or 6 years, it's necessary to accommodate a year with 53 weeks. The EPM Financials module now allows the application to be created with 53 weeks support built in. You can also turn it on incrementally on an existing 52-week application. However, once you turn it on, it can't be turned off for that application. You can now select how many valid intersection definitions appear on a page. So the valid intersection page has a pagination bar at the bottom that if you have a lot of definitions, you can scroll through those. You can also select how many appear on that page. If you have more than 300 rules, the all option will be grayed out. Starting with the April update, the Microsoft Edge browser version 80 is now supported in EPM Cloud. And this new one, this next one, if you've ever experienced not being able to see the member names on the rows of a form, this update is for you. So this month, it was in the new items being released this month. This month, we'll see the release of row width. This is a dimension property setting for row dimensions on forms. It will allow you to set the width of the columns on the form rows. This feature only applies to planning, financial consolidation and close, and tax reporting. Another update coming out this month is the ability to add web links into navigation flow cards and tabs in your EPM Cloud. You can now specify an error file to capture data records using the REST API. The error file will get stored in an outbox where it's available for download. Previously, you could do this with metadata files. They would get incorporated into a zip. You can download them. Now you can do this. You can create a data error file and have it available for download. New Groovy rules in Workforce. There are new Groovy rules to improve data movement for Workforce. These new Groovy rules are run by a service administrator. So if you haven't started learning Groovy, it's time to start. As you can see, this is the direction Oracle's going with EPM. Other new options in the Groovy toolbox are the ability to call Excel functions and the ability to convert ASO graphical rules to Groovy script. There are two new time balance options, custom and disable. If you select the custom time balance, this will allow you to use Groovy to perform custom spreading. If you choose the disable time balance, this makes summary time periods read-only, and spreading is unavailable for that account. These time balance options do not affect how data is stored or other roll-ups defined for the member. The audit will now retain 365 days of records. To turn on auditing, tools, audit, enable auditing. If you can go in and view the audit details. You have the ability to export audit details. If you need to export more than 100 days of audit records, you can use EPM Automate and REST APIs. A new data map option allows you to prioritize smart list entry names when you're moving data. There's a couple of caveats there, but this is a feature for those people who need to use data maps to work with, use smart lists through data maps. And let's go and see if we have any questions, Ali. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions coming in for you here, Doug, but we'll wait just one more minute. Somebody asked, will this video link be shared by email to rewatch? Yes, we are recording this presentation right now that Doug just gave, and we'll send out the recording for you. We've got a question here. Any known issues of converting an existing EP BCS application to hybrid? Any known issues of converting that?
It's going to depend on the application. There could be issues, again, depending on what is in the application. We'd have to review the specific application to see what those problems might be.
Someone asked, do we need to know Java to learn Groovy?
No. If you know Java, it will help with Groovy, but you don't have to know Java to learn Groovy.
Any other questions for Doug?
Okay.
All right, looks like that's it.
So we'll wrap up. The EPM world, just a quick wrap up here. The EPM world is evolving rapidly. Some type of significant change just about every month. SmartView continues to receive increased functionality, as do the EPM modules and custom applications. With predictive planning and auto predict now, businesses have many options for how they do their planning and forecasting. And strategic modeling continues to evolve, and it'll become a critical tool for rapid long-term and what-if modeling. Before you go, we'd like to invite you to join interRel as we get the band back together for the 2020 Hyperion Solutions Conference. That's October 19th through the 22nd. If you're interested, you can visit epm.bi/Hyperion to register. And thank you for attending What's New in EPM Planning. Go to interrel.com/updates and stay up to date on all the information as it changes. Thank you.